Season 4, because she was going off to college, there were a lot of new sets, some of which we saw only one time.
It was nice to be in new spaces, and having blown up the library, we had to build the university hall that we had.
With these great sets, really kind of easy to get into your part. You know, if you're in a crypt, you're in a crypt, you know?
Kerry Myers, the production designer, is just phenomenal. He has the ability of using sets over and over and redesigning them and making them look like something else, like the secret laboratory. That set initially started as a library, a very old-looking library. Then it became a sort of a Gothic-looking church, using the same structure, which is the arches of this. So Kerry just kept keeping the basic arch structure and kept redesigning it into these various different sets, and you'd never recognize it.
We always knew that the frat house was the cover for the initiative. So I knew from the beginning, we sort of built that set in segments. We had the sort of initiative main hall with the staircase that went up to an upper loft. So we built that initially, and then, but Joss had, sort of cued me into the fact that we'd be going in other places in that set that we'd have to discover later on. So as the season progressed, we sort of just added on little back hallways, which led to the secret mirror that you'd open up and then go into the elevator that takes you all the way down into the initiative. And then there's other sets that carried on throughout the season, all the hallways and stuff, some of which we did on stage. And we created an infinite length of cells in a shot with actually just 2 mirrors. We only had 5 cells, and we had very large mirrors on either end of it, so that it just reflected the hallway to infinity on both ends.
The biggest and best set of all isn't really a set at all. It's the initiative, which was filmed at a place called Skunk Works, where they built stealth bombers. And it's not designed for movies. It's a huge government installation that's real and huge and important. So that's why it looks as realistic and enormous as it does.
I wanted to get that overwhelming sense of the paranoia and the grandeur and the we have everything. Visually, sometimes we were able to pull it off. We got a few shots, like when they first go into the initiative, that are really epic. But we wanted basically James Bond.
The initiative set, we used a couple different big industrial hangars with very cool features, these sort of movable catwalks and these big pits built into the floors.
That we lined with Mylar plastic, just to sort of give it that space age, high-tech look. And also allowed us just to give that high-tech look to just one very specific spot in a very large set. If we were to try to make that whole set look high-tech, it just would have been prohibitively expensive.
We built a pretty impressive university inside one of our stages. They had to create a new world for Buffy, and on one of our stages, they created UC Sunnydale, and it was just amazing. Hallways, and upon hallways you can walk through and go into lecture halls and go into student common room areas and staircases that went up to nowhere, but we didn't know that. It was just a very impressive looking institution. We also used, when the doors open from the university, it would actually be out in our parking lot. And what they do is they dress the wall, the only part of the wall of our building you could see, they dressed it like a university, a hall or a dormitory or something. And we used a lot of our little studio space, our little compound here.
Okay, so now we're walking into our set here on stage. This is our college campus interior hallway, and for you real Buffy aficionados, you might see this space and realize that this used to be the high school hallways. Just sort of changed into our college campus here on our stages here. Basically, it's the same layout as what we used to have for our school hallway, and you can see we've added a lot of brick. We've changed the arches, new floor surfaces, a lot more architectural detail than what we had in our high school campus. And this was all to fall into place with the exteriors, though, that we still use for our college campus, which is the UCLA college campus. So all the details that you see in these hallways were taken from the UCLA campus.
The college, I very much felt like we were at the university, and it had a real character to it.
I think our college sets are amazing. The big lecture hall looks very cool.
It was really beautifully designed. Carrie went to UCLA and took a ton of pictures and tried to match everything really beautifully to the exteriors that we shot.
The brick is an actual skin, like a fiberglass skin that we buy out of catalogs. Some of it we fabricate. This is all like plaster with sand details in it to look like sandstone. These are just photocopies onto a piece of Celotex that we make look like a tile, and then we put a nice clear coat shellac over it to give it a shiny quality. But this is just like a scanned color Xerox image that was actually from the actual tile at UCLA. And we did actually shoot some interiors at UCLA for the first episode in season 4. So you'll notice that maybe the very large library, the opening episode in season 4 was actually UCLA. And we used some of the hallways there as well, and then we tied it into the set here that we've got. Here we're walking into Spike's crypt, and you can see all the texture in here. We play a lot with vines and fake cobwebs, and just lots of grime. Any kind of texture we can kind of put in here really adds to the essence of the place. And also these, you've got these what we call beers. They're large cement coffins, had the lids that come off, and inside you can see got all this fabric and stuff. And sometimes we'll play a skeleton in here, or debris, or something Spike's found. And right underneath you is a pit that plays. We've got a piece of wood covering it right now for safety, but there's a pit under here, and you go through a little hole and down into a whole other set, which is actually not down there, but it's just the entrance to it, which is Spike's lower chamber, the cave that's underneath Spike's crypt. Here we're just about to walk back into the Sunnydale street, and if you're looking in here, you've got the espresso pump with the blue awnings over there. So in a second we can go inside, but this was the first building that was built in the back lot. We built it as a little set that has a little interior, and we built a couple facades outside of it so we could be inside looking out and pretending like we were in a street that we would someday have, like we have now. But originally we just had this one little building with a little interior set that we would play little facades outside of to make it feel like we were in a street. And then we just slowly, each episode, would build a new facade until we had a whole street, until we eventually built the Sun Cinema, which is down at the end of their street, which really sort of framed our street and really brought it into a full 360-degree set. Okay, here we're walking into the espresso pump, which is just sort of a little coffee joint that is an old gas station sort of retroed into a little coffee joint. So here we kind of are playing off the automobile motif. You can see all these stools are made out of wheels off of cars, and all the lamps in here are hubcaps off of cars. And you've got to see many car parts as well. The decorator, David Conniff, pretty much goes and finds all this stuff. Pretty sure this was his idea to get the hubcaps and make these lights out of them. This set played heavily in the show Superstar with Buffy and Jonathan, where they sort of had this little scene going on in here. But if you keep the look consistent enough, then it all just, you've created a world that just is realistic, and you don't really have to go to a level of detail all the time.